For more than 100 years, we've been looking at the exact same maps, asking the exact same question. Who were the Sea Peoples? Were they from Greece, Crete, Anatolia, Sardinia? I've spent the last few days looking into those theories, and something stood out to me. More than a century later, nobody can agree. And that's what got me thinking. What if we're asking the wrong question? What if the real mystery isn't who they were? What if the real mystery is why they appeared when they did? We know they existed because the Egyptians carved them into the walls of the Medinet Habu, a massive temple that still stands today. But the carvings only show us the battle. They never say where these people came from. That silence is telling. Because when you look closer, you notice a pattern. Everywhere the sea people show up, the ancient world is already falling apart. Kingdoms are crumbling, trade is dying, cities are burning. And suddenly, you find yourself asking a completely different question. Were these people actually causing the collapse? Or were they just caught in the same terrifying crisis as everyone else? If that's true, we might have completely misunderstood them for 3,000 years. And that's where the mystery really begins. See, when we talk about the ancient world, it's easy to picture their massive, untouchable empire standing strong. Egypt, the Hittites, Mycenaean Greece. But around 12,000 BC, something was changing, enough that ordinary people noticed. Imagine a merchant waiting by the docks for ships that never arrived. A farmer staring at a ruined harvest, wondering how to feed his kids. A family hearing rumors of conflict and shortages from the next town over. And yes, some of them became invaders. They brought fire and destruction to the gates of Egypt and the Hittites. They shattered civilizations. There is no hiding that fact. But when you look at the ashes, you find yourself wondering, did they destroy that world because they wanted an empire? Or were they just trying to carve out a place to live in a world that was already dying? What does it feel like when you completely lose confidence in tomorrow? You start asking the hardest choice a human can make. Do we stay here and die, or do we pack up and leave? For some, leaving meant walking to the next village, but for others, it meant packing their entire lives onto an ox cart. It meant putting their wives and children onto boats and sailing straight into a completely unknown sea. When peoples become that hungry, that desperate, when they are terrified for their children's future, they do things they never would have dreamed on before. Maybe they weren't one single group. Maybe they were many different peoples. Maybe they weren't simply invaders. Maybe they were just survivors. Or maybe they were both. Here's the real lesson. When systems collapse, desperate people don't become villains, they become refugees. And that changes how we see the entire story. When I think about it that way, the mystery changes. It stops being a lecture about the Bronze Age collapse and starts becoming a story about us, about people trying to protect their families in a world changing too fast. So I want to know what you think. When you look at the Sea Peoples, do you see invaders, survivors, or something much more complicated? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And until next time, keep tracing the shadows.